Dale Lilly here with Rescue American Ministries, and I'm going to be looking at one of these so-called prophets today. But it's not just him. They're coming out of the woodworks now. They've been a lot of them around for some time, but more recently, especially with things that are going on now, everybody wants to be a prophet, and they're all over social media, has all kind of followings. Uh, the Bible predicted that. It warned us about that there'd be false prophets that come out and false Christ, and uh, yet people are flocking to them. You need to be very careful. The Bible says, test the spirits, whether they be of God or not. The way you test them is through the Word of God. Now, this man, those of you that know me and have watched my videos before, you know I rarely do this. I rarely do a video targeting an individual. I have before when I felt like I needed to, but I rarely do it. and my concern, yes, it makes my blood boil. It angers me when I see some of the things this guy's teaching. But my biggest concern is that so many people are following what he's teaching. And you might better check up if you're following nonsense like this. Now, they make a lot of prophecies. This guy has a lot of programs. He's head of this. I think it's called the prophecy. Something or another anyway. But the Prophecy Club, excuse me, that's the name of it. And he's got he's a pastor supposedly, and I don't know what else. But this guy's full of hate. If you'll just listen, he's full of hate. He has to have somebody to hate. And that is a problem in our society now. So many people, and I'm including church people and at least professing Christians, maybe some Christians, they feel like for some reason they have to have somebody to hate, some villain to go after. Well, listen, there is one, and his name is Satan. Um, all these others, yes, that's the reason we have laws, and we need to, pass good laws that will punish evildoers. That's true, but this nonsense that we're supposed to go out or somehow and turn people against all these things and against the whole people group, that is called prejudice. And that's where this man is at. And I hear this a lot, especially about people that are inhabiting the land of Israel today, that they're not the people that's supposed to belong there. Well, I tell you what, God's sure done some miracles to keep them there and protect them since that nation. Well, I mean, it's a miracle that came into existence anyway. It was prophesied. And then since then, excuse me, it has been a miracle that God has preserved them when all the neighbors around them attacked them several times, and their purpose is to annihilate them. And God has done some miraculous things to preserve that country. So you better be careful if you're trying to say that everybody there is not the right people. You might be among those at the end of days when Jesus said, I'll draw all nations around Jerusalem because they're all going to be there to take a spoil. And so if you've got that attitude, maybe you'll be there with the rest of them trying to get your part. Say, hey, I'm the one that belongs there. That's supposed to be my land. Well, it belongs to the land of the children of Israel, primarily. Well, it does. This one does. So anyway, I don't want to get off onto that. Let me tell you some things to look for here. About 20 seconds in, I think it is, he makes a statement that you're going to hear truth that you've never heard before. And that's always a warning sign. People are always That's a warning sign on both ends. That's a warning sign, should be a warning sign to you. It's a warning sign to others that you have itching ears if that's what you're looking for. Some new truth, something new all the time. You don't even know the Bible good enough yet. You've got plenty in there that you haven't covered, that you haven't studied, that you don't need to be looking for something new outside of there that some uh, false prophet claims he has. And I hope you'll pardon me. I've got just a little bit of asthma problem here. I've been out in the weather, snow and cold, so just came back in a little while ago. Sinuses are stopped up, but we'll get through it. Now, about 50 seconds in, he talks about, I don't know, I'd say the poor fellow. I really don't feel sorry for him, unless he is just ignorant. He talks about Moloch and Baal worshippers. Well, you know, Baal is spelled B-A-L-L. Baal is spelled B-A-A-L, and that's what he's talking about is Moloch and Baal worshippers. And he labels a whole group of people as Moloch and Baal worshippers that need to be wiped out off the face of the earth. And where are they? Those are the people in Ukraine. He honors Putin. He specifies that Putin's not a good guy, but he says in this case he's doing the right thing. He's going in to cleanse the land in Ukraine. Well, I tell you, look at the video, it don't look like he's cleansing. He's destroying everything in there. So he talks about the Khazarian mafia. Yes, we know about the corruption that's there in the Ukraine. People talk about it's one of the most corrupt countries in that part of the world. Well, it's right up there in competition with us here in the United States. Let's just put it that way. When you've got and you know, there's more that goes on. When we've got a Secretary of State that has files and emails that are called before Congress, and then they're just destroyed after they've been subpoenaed, and nothing happens. I'd say something a little corrupt there. And when you've got an opposition party spying, using the FBI and the other government officials and offices to spy on another presidential candidate, and then after he's president even continue to spy on him. I'd say there's quite a bit of corruption here. We might give the Ukraine a little run for the money. When you've got a vice president that says, well, I told them unless they fired this guy that's investigating my son in Ukraine, unless they fire him, you're not getting the government money that you're supposed to be getting. I'll see to that. I'd say there's a little bit of corruption going on. Matter of fact, it's not a little bit. It's deep, deep. That's why they call it the deep state. So don't tell me you need to label a whole nation of people. I know people in Ukraine. Are they all saints? Well, of course not. Is there corruption? Of course there is. You show me one nation on earth where there's no corruption. Satan is not just the prince of Ukraine. He's not just the prince of Russia. Satan is the prince of this world, is what we're told. And Jeremiah 17:9 says that the heart is deceitfully wicked. Who can know it? It doesn't say the heart of Ukrainians. It doesn't say the heart of the Moloch and Baal worshippers. No, the heart of every man born into this earth. We heard that heart from Adam. That's why that Jeremiah also said in 24:7 that we had to have a new heart to know God as Lord. Okay, he talks. Okay, I got that 1 minute Khazarian. And then at 120, I think he says that this work in Ukraine is not. It is not an invasion. He's got his information from somebody else. You know, he says, well, you can't believe, you know, the media at all. Well, I agree a lot with that. Don't mean every story they have is false, but yeah, I agree with that. But I wanted to let you know, you don't need to believe this guy because he's about as far from the truth as he can get. It's not an invasion, he says. It's just a cleansing action for the land. Putin is going in there cleaning up, and it's just a rehash of Q. Instead of Donald Trump, that's going to be going around the world arresting all the pedophiles and, you know, sex trafficking people. Now it's Putin that's doing that. Well, I mean, what happened? All these prophets seem to prophesy these things and claim these things are going on, going to happen, and don't happen. You know, in the Old Testament said that if you had a prophet that missed one prophecy, if he got it wrong, then and he told the prophecy was not right, he was to be taken out and stoned to death for prophesying something, saying that God said something that God did not say. But we have people today that it doesn't bother them at all. 145, he talks about the cleansing. Yeah. 250, international relations, he somehow explains that to mean something totally different in the world. 330 mark, he talks about the to read, but you have to read between the lines. Well, I don't see anything between the lines when I read. I know what he's talking about, but the problem with reading between the lines is that in this case, you can mean it. You can make it mean whatever you want to make it mean. Okay, let's watch a little bit, and see my video already has gone down there, and some of you may be watching this, man. If you are, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what you need to do. You need to get away from him.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is the truth about Ukraine. And believe me, you have not heard this truth before. You've not heard
this is that new truth I was telling you about.
You listened to the broadcast yesterday, which kind of hinted at it. But I'm going to bring you what's really going on, not only in Ukraine, but also the internal revolution that's about to take place in America. So let's start with HowTurnerRadioShow.com. Humanity is being liberated. Liberated? Liberated from what? From who? The answer is from the Moloch and Baal worshippers. Humanity is being liberated as
Jesus Christ will do that when he returns.
Goes on the offensive. He goes on to say the Russian and Jewish people are finally getting justice for the Holodomor, in other words, how they were starved to death, and the Holocaust, which is mass murder of human sacrifice, events staged by the Khazarian Mafia. This is thanks to now look at this. He doesn't say it's an invasion. It's not an invasion. As I already explained to you, this was planned months ago and perhaps even years ago.
It doesn't make
a Russian police operation.
It doesn't matter when it was planned.
Against the Khazarian Mafia operating inside their borders. I don't have time to go and explain all that. Let me just get to the highlights here. What's essentially going on is Russia is going in and cleansing the land. They don't want Ukraine. They just want the Moloch and Baal worshippers to be put down. And that's the same thing that the internal revolution is about to do in America. It's the good guys trying to kick the bad guys out. Now, I know that if you listen to the normal news, you are not getting the truth. Let me go on. Now, look at this next part, because at the end of this program, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. When this is all over, there will be a jubilee, world peace, and the start of a new
Peace and
golden
safety. Peace
age.
and safety,
And I
they'll
think
say,
that's what
then
they
sudden
planned.
destruction.
And I think it will be that for about 6 months. But then it falls apart when the suitcase nukes hit America. But let's go on. He says, here's a bullet point summary of what the Russian presidential avatar Vladimir Putin had to say about the
Does he
operation
know
in
what an
Ukraine.
avatar is?
This has to do with the entire system of international relations. In other words, what Putin and Russia is doing has to do with cleansing the land, the whole land.
How do you get
all
that out
the
of
world.
international
Fundamental
relations?
norms that were adopted following World War II. He said it's a matter of life and death. We had to stop the atrocity. What's he talking about? He's talking about what the Moloch and Baal worshippers do. They worship Satan by killing Satan's enemy, God's people, and killing them, eating them, drinking their blood, human sacrifice. That's what they do. And it's saying, if you read between the lines, he's saying that this
people
atrocity,
say about Americans.
that's what Russia is really doing. And I want to tell you some information I have, but I dare not because they would take me off. But suffice to say, there's a lot of good that is going on, a lot of cleansing that's going on, just like when the internal revolution takes place in America, probably next month. Then we're probably going to see the good guys kick the bad guys out. Well, that's what's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. The good guys are kicking out the bad guys. Now, let's go on. It is a matter of life and death. We had to stop that atrocity, that genocide of the millions of people who live there.
There was no genocide.
To demilitarize and denazify
Anybody believes
Ukraine.
that nonsense?
Bad people in Ukraine.
Ignorant.
Bad people, okay? As well as bring to trial those who perpetrated numerous bloody crimes against civilians. I think he's telling the truth here.
Look who's doing it
Let's
now.
go on. A good summary of their activities can be seen here. Now, I recommend you go to that site. It'll take a little bit of concentration to type all of that in, but that's a very good overview of, if you want to understand who the Moloch and Baal worshippers are, there you go. You go to that site. Let's go on, though. So it says, to quote and paraphrase, it says, these Khazarians, these Moloch and Baal worshippers, were known to surrounding countries as thieves. That's who they are. Thieves, murderers, road bandits, for assuming the identities of those travelers they murdered. About 1200 AD, the Russians led a group of nations surrounding Khazaria and invaded it. In other words, this is a cancer. This is an evil, an ancient evil that grows and grows and grows until finally the only solution is to cut the cancer out. That's what Russia is trying to do in Ukraine, and that's what the internal revolution that is going to kick out the bad guys is about to accomplish in America. It's a cleansing. It's a good thing. And yes, there is a time when a bad nation like Russia can actually do a good thing. And that's what it's talking about here. Let's go on, though. So the Russians led a group of nations surrounding Khazaria and invaded it in order to stop the Khazarian crimes against their people.
Oh, they invaded.
Which included.
It wasn't a cleansing?
Listen to this.
Listen, I'm listening.
He's not the only one saying this. I mean, when Moses came down off of Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments, he looked down, he saw they were worshiping Baal. It's the same spirit.
Baal.
It's the same religion, which included the kidnapping of the young children, infants for their blood sacrifice ceremonies to Baal or Satan. The KM elite fled to Europe, where they slowly, over a period of centuries, infiltrated and finally took over the ruling classes there. Their biggest victory came in 1913 when the Federal Reserve Board was taken over by the KM in an illegal Christmas Day move. There's more. By grabbing control of the money of the people of the United States of America, I shouldn't say that name, and his KM buddies were able to finance the communist revolution in Russia, which was the overthrow of the Christian government of Russia at the time. Yes, Russia used to be a Christian nation for some 600 years. I went through the museum. Yes, they used to be a Christian nation, a very Christian nation, until these guys overthrew them. And that's what happened to us about a year and a half ago. Can't exactly say the date. You got to understand what I'm talking about. Overthrew the Christian government of Russia, and they began the revenge for the destruction of Khazaria. Overall, they killed as many as 80 million Russians during the 20th century. They also began the project to recreate Khazaria by starving millions. He goes on, you can read it, let's go on now.
Okay.
This means the Jews have removed the Khazarian mafia control of Israel and now realize the Holocaust is actually a burnt offering to their God, a mass sacrifice of the people to Satan by the Khazarian mafia. According to Mossad sources, the move by Russia and Ukraine means the fake, I can't say that word, it means that means the eternal revolution is about to start. Let's go on. So he said,
Okay, let's hold up just a minute here, because he's getting ready to say something else. Now, you can believe what you want to about some of this nonsense. I know there's been people, I thought most people were educated enough to get out of that, but anybody that don't know that B-A-A-L does not spell Baal, it spells Baal, may not be able to comprehend it. But there's the passage in the Old Testament that talks about a idol that was made that it sounds like it could be talking about a Christmas tree. It is not. It was not talking about a Christmas tree, but even if it was, let's see where we're at. 2130. Okay. Well, I'm not sure where we're at on it because the time is not the same on here. But shortly he will say that talks about Christmas tree worshipers. In other words, people that put up Christmas trees. And evidently, we deserve the same fate as the Moloch and Baal worshipers in Ukraine are getting right now. But like I say, the next thing will be the Christmas tree worshipers. So if you should put up a Christmas tree, and this man thinks you might as well just be slaughtered with everybody else.
Okay, actually, he just said that not that we're like the Moloch and Baal worshippers, but we are the Moloch and Baal worshippers if you put up a Christmas tree.
Rid of them.
And so what's he say has to happen to the Moloch and Baal worshippers, what it really is? You know, they can't be redeemed. You can't be redeemed if you put up a Christmas tree. You're only worthy of death, and you have to be wiped out. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
Listen to it again if you want to.
Smote them all with the edge of the sword.
That's the only thing you can do with them.
Taken out of the house of Baal and burned, and then the house of Baal was broken down and burned, and became a sewer. The way to say it today. So that's the third example.
Okay,
There's a fourth example. See, this is what's happening. This is what God is trying to do in our nation right now. Russia is trying to clean and purify Russia in their area. America is about to start cleaning and purifying our area so we can have the Jubilee.
The only thing you can do is get rid of them.
Peace and safety without these evil people.
No
so
evil
you go to
people.
1 Kings 18:19, and it tells the story. Now therefore send and gather to me all of the prophets of Baal, 450 of them, prophets of the groves. Those are the people that worship the Christmas trees.
All right, here we go. You worship, you make
and
Christmas
they
trees.
Them. They pour out drink offerings and meat offerings, and they put
That's,
their gifts to God.
If you put up a Christmas tree, he's talking about you.
Okay. So he says, gather them all together. He says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a little preach-off. I will set up a sacrifice, you set up a sacrifice, and the God that answers by fire, let him be God. They said, deal. So it says, here's what we're going to do. God that answers by fire, let him be God. They said, it's well spoken. So they took a sacrifice. They cut up the sacrifice, the bull. And they said, old Baal, come and answer by fire. And he didn't answer by fire. And so Elijah started making fun of him. He says, well, maybe he's out, he's a God. Maybe he's out hunting, or maybe he's asleep, but maybe you got to wake him up. And so they jumped all and they cut themselves, and they hollered and they screamed and they pounded on their drums, and they couldn't get their God to answer by fire. So finally, about the time of the evening sacrifice, when they could not get their God to answer, there was neither a voice nor any answer that regarded him. Elijah says, okay, my turn. So he set up the sacrifice. He said, take 4 barrels of water, pour on the burnt sacrifice and the wood. He said, do it the second time. They did it the second time. Do it the third time. They did it the third time. So that's 12 barrels of water poured all over the sacrifice, all of the wood, all of the rocks, everything. It ran all over the place. And then he called upon the Lord, the burnt sacrifice, the wood, stones, dust, and this fire licked up all of the water that was in the trench, everything. Everybody fell down and said, the Lord, he is really God. The Lord, he is really God. So as a result, what they did, they took the prophets of Baal and the prophets of the groves down to the brook Kishron, and they slew them. There's 4 specific examples where Moloch and Baal had to be killed. What Russia is doing,
you put up a Christmas tree, that's you.
Exactly the same thing. Russia's not trying to take over Ukraine. It's not an invasion. The Russians are not the bad guys. The Russians, in this case, I'm not a fan of Russia, and I know Russia's going to attack and destroy America in 1 hour, one day. Such great riches come to naught. I understand that. I know all that. I'm not defending Russia. What I'm trying to say is Russia, in this case, is doing the right thing. They're going down and trying to cleanse the land of these Moloch and Baal worshippers. Now, what's about to happen in America is a similar thing. Let me jump to and talk about the quantum financial system here for just a second.
Okay, that's enough here.
So this comes to us from finalwakeupcall.info. It says the quantum financial